Good evening. Welcome to Columbia University's Alelia Bundles Community Scholars Discussion, the Harlem Maker Fair Programs, Projects, and Partnerships with Bundles Scholars Karioki Crosby and Regan Sommer McCoy. I'm George Calderaro, Director of Outreach Programs at Columbia University's School of Professional Studies. The Bundles Community Scholars Lecture and Program are presented and administered by the School of Professional Studies and the Office of Government and Community Affairs. The Scholars Program was created to enable independent scholars in the community to pursue their academic aspirations through access to Columbia courses and resources. This lecture series was created to provide a forum for scholars to share their work and research. I'll briefly introduce the scholars, after which they will have a discussion about their work independently and together. Then we'll take questions from you all. Karioki Crosby is the founder of Latimer Heights, which produces the Harlem Maker Fair and offers digital literacy workshops for children, youth, and adults at Columbia University, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Microsoft, and Hip Hop Hacks, among many other venues. He has also been a teacher educator at the Guggenheim Museum, the New York Hall of Science, the New York Historical Society, the Lewis Latimer House Museum, the Morgan Library and Museum, among others. Karioki has many roles at the Queens Public Library as a digital literacy educator, system-wide robotics manager, and co-chair of the library's President's Council on Racial Equity. He was a founding teacher in and creator of the Visual Arts program at KIPP NYC Public Schools, a network of 15 public charter schools in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Harlem, and Washington Heights. Regan Sommer McCoy has more than 15 years of experience in the music industry working with hip hop artists. She's a founder of the Mixtape Museum, which encourages the research, archiving, and data analysis of mixtapes and seeks to achieve systematic preservation in the DJ and hip hop communities. In 2016, she launched Hip Hop Hacks, a hackathon that offers students the opportunity to explore how hip hop inspires technological innovation. Sommer is a grantee of the Association for Recorded Sound Collections, a charter member of the William and Mary Hip Hop Collection, and serves as an education committee member with the Hip Hop Education Center and Universal Hip Hop Museum. This year, Crosby and McCoy received a professional development grant from the Mixtape Museum and Latimer Heights from the Institute of Museum and Library Services Program Game Plan, a national initiative to integrate game design into museum education programs. This evening, Crosby and McCoy will discuss this and other work to promote and increase student engagement, especially during and after the COVID pandemic, computer programming / literacy, wellness / health, and teamwork. Before I turn the screen over to Karioki and Sommer, just a couple of announcements. I'm very sad to inform you that this week we lost one of our Columbia Bundles scholars, Nancy Dorsonville, who was conducting a new narrative for Haiti. So our condolences to her family. Also, we are recording this talk. It will be available to view and share on this events page on the SPS website next week. During the talk, please feel free to post questions using the Q&A, not the chat, function at the bottom of your screen. Following the talk, our speakers will respond to your questions that I will read. Now, please help me virtually welcome Karioki Crosby and Regan Sommer McCoy.
Thank you everyone. Good evening. My name is Karioki Crosby, as George just laid out, and I'm really thrilled to be here and presenting, talking about the Harlem Maker Fair and also partnerships with my friend Regan Sommer McCoy. So I'm going to begin with a kind of guide and almost an orientation as to what the Harlem Maker Fair is, how it was created, and covering projects and also partnerships and programs. I'm going to be reading from the presentation that I created here. There are images here as well, but just in case anyone may be, if you're visually impaired, you want to know what's going on, okay? So I'm going to begin. So about the Harlem Maker Fair. In 2018, Karioki Crosby and Nathan Williamson established Latimer Heights and the Harlem Maker Fair to give families living in and around Harlem an annual free event where they could have life-changing experiences through exchangement with interactive technology and art projects. Latimer Heights is named in honor of the life and work of Lewis Howard Latimer. The Harlem Maker Fair is free to all groups and everyone who registers. Before COVID, the Harlem Maker Fair was situated at the Adam Clayton Powell Jr. State Office Building Plaza. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Harlem Maker Fair of 2020 was virtual. The Harlem Maker Fair was developed as a response to the deficit of viable pathways to careers in STEM for Black and Brown youth and their families. Too many Black and Brown youth and families, do not have access to or awareness of agencies that would grow their foundational digital literacy, such as scholarships or gifted and talented programs. Because of this, Black and Brown students are underrepresented in STEM initiatives and are not prepared to take entrance exams that would get them into specialized high schools. Without access to the knowledge of how computer science is rapidly sculpting the world economic landscape, Black and Brown youth will not experience the application of their values to technological media, nor will they have the tools to self-advocate when they are undersampled during the building of machine learning models, which can make decisions that can determine one's range of freedom. Influence, support, participation, and encouragement from parents and caretakers is urgent if Black and Brown youth are to have a fighting chance of dodging cultural and literal obsolescence as we are positioned as the consumers of technology. We also understand that parents and caregivers may not feel that they are empowered with the knowledge or networks needed for guiding youth who are interested in STEM-related careers. To address this, Latimer Heights is seeking funding to be able to provide willing parents and caregivers with free computer science certification prep courses in basic digital literacy, programming languages, HTML, CSS, email. The benefits of that is parents and caregivers are able to assist youth with homework during remote learning, which is a huge challenge. Parents and caregivers can grow a network amongst themselves. Parents and caregivers will be marketable and entrepreneurial. And most of all, parents and caregivers will run the Harlem Maker Fair. There are methods which you can donate. Please donate by promoting our courses and also connecting us to grant opportunities. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go over programs. So programs and presenting at the Harlem Maker Fair. So in addition to our online classes, the Harlem Maker Fair, Latimer Heights also creates custom designed activities for other organizations. This image here that I'm showing is from an event that we had at BAM in 2020. So the way that you can present at the Harlem Maker Fair is through contacting us for a planning session. The events can be either virtual or in person, and we arrange a planning session and discuss and brainstorm what it is that you or your group will be making. The projects can be aligned to some academic content, but they don't have to be. The average amount of sessions to complete a project is about 5 sessions, with each session about 1.5 hours in length of time. So there is a fee for that when we're working with schools. There is a setup if we're working in person, in 3-dimensional space, and for that we provide outlets. You may bring a 3D printer or something that needs to be powered up. So for organizations, institutions, and companies, and other types of businesses, again, there is a fee, but it's a sliding scale fee. And there is an application online at latimerheights.org, and just let us know what you need for setting up. That is whether the event is virtual or in person. And it's the same for individuals. If you're an individual who wants to present at the Harlem Maker Fair, whether virtual or in person, again, just fill out the application that's online. If you're selling something, we're going to charge you for that, but again, it's a sliding scale for vendors as well. And when we're fortunate enough to work again in space, then we provide you your tables and your tables and your cables. And we have some upcoming classes that is Intro to AI, and you can learn about AI, how it works, and why it matters. And that's for youth, grades 3 through 5. There's also a web design and JavaScript course where you can make a digital portfolio that you can share online or on social media, and that's for grades 9 through 12. Then there is Getting Data with Python. You can create data visualizations in Python, and that's anybody that's from 9th grade to adult. Those classes will start the week of July 7th, 2021, so that is this summer. And you can register for those classes right now at latimerheights.org. Our Harlem Maker Fair will be virtual. So far, we are still talking and thinking about whether or not we're going to change that so that we can have something in person, depending on what the climate looks like in the city, all things considered. So nonetheless, you can register for classes or to participate at the Harlem Maker Fair at latimerheights.org. Now I will talk a bit about our ongoing projects. Socially engaged art. So what is socially engaged art? Helicon Collaborative offers this working definition: artistic or creative practice that aims to improve conditions on a particular community or the world at large. So Latimer Heights believes that STEM is one of the humanities. So each Harlem Maker Fair will have at least one socially engaged art project intentionally designed to provoke interlocutors to finish an art project while discussing its relevance to the community. Another project that's in the works is the event clock. This is an invention that is a tool for time management and conflict resolution. The prototypes for this will go out to our partners at Resettlement and Information Technology High School in the fall. Since we're working remotely, what I'm hearing from a lot of my students is that they just need structure, right? So the event clock is an invention that helps to provide and create structure. The Emancipation of Dada. This is a children's book that is the story of a journey of a particle of light who overcomes obstacles as he travels from the core of the sun to Earth. And we also have Toilet Bowl Time Travel. This is also a children's book and a tabletop game about a kid who flushes the toilet so hard that she creates a black hole that sucks her in and transports her to the Middle Ages where they don't have toilets. For our patrons, our 2 projects are Machine Learning with Python. And the goal of that project is to create activities so that patrons can get a working knowledge of how to use Python and basically build information and data so that they can advocate for themselves for funding, housing, wellness, and education. Also, for our patrons, the project is the Internet of Things. And the goal of that project is to address data poverty. Patrons will understand how things such as wearable health bands, self-monitoring factory equipment work. Patrons will be introduced to ways that the Internet of Things has the potential to create new jobs and enrich quality of life and create a more climate-suitable environment. Later on in our talk, I will share a demonstration of a socially engaged art project. And for my last page, partnerships. Ongoing partnerships and thanks. Aurelia Bundles Community Lelia Bundles Columbia University Community Scholars Program Leadership, including but not limited to George, Maggie, Bashar, Karen, Flores, and I'm sure there are many others. All of my other fellow Aurelia Bundles community scholars, especially those who have participated in the Harlem Maker Fair. The Connected Chef is an organization that I work with, actually I sit on the board of, and they distribute nutrient-dense groceries, 80% of which come from local farms and distributors around the tri-state. And we believe that reconnecting with where food comes from is the first step toward food sovereignty for all communities. Resettlement and DYCD, for the past 2 years, we've been working together to bring STEM career pathways, internships, college readiness courses, and scholarship opportunities to teens. Reese has been a facilitator and promoter of the orientation for our game plan initiative, as well as the Latimer Heights internship program of 2020. Information technology, for the past 2 years, the leadership there has been very supportive in promoting Latimer Heights in-person and online STEM opportunities to their students and community. Without a doubt, the Mixtape Museum, through exhibitions, technology, publications, symposia, collaborative projects, and other partnerships, the Mixtape Museum is creating an environment that encourages dialogue between scholars, music professionals, enthusiasts on the mixtape's various functions in society. Latimer Heights and the Mixtape Museum are ongoing partners in producing content that highlights the intersection of art and technology. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, for the past 4 years, Latimer Heights has partnered with the Met on their Teens Take the Met spring and fall events. Latimer Heights will be presenting a socially engaged art activity in October of 2021 at the Met Fest. And starting April 21st, that is next week, we'll be hosting free game design classes for middle and high school students from April through July. We'll be making both digital video games and also tabletop games. So if you join in this program, you'll be learning the code to make video games. If you've never coded before, this is the right place for you. If you have some coding experience, that is awesome too. Working in teams, we will be building games and programming together step by step. You will also have the creative freedom to change or remix any game that we create or use your skills to create your own game. With tabletop games, you have the opportunity to create games that will be installed in museums, schools, libraries, and at maker fairs. You can register for that at latimerheights.org. There is another orientation that we have coming up next Monday, and then the classes for that actually start next Wednesday. And just a little bit more on our partnerships. We've partnered with First, who's helping out with the Game Plan Initiative, Resettlement, the Met, which we'll be doing a project with in the fall, and of course, the mighty Mixtape Museum and the founder, Regan, Sommer, McCoy, who I'm going to pass the forum over to right now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'd like to say thank you to Columbia University Professional Studies, and of course, the Aurelia Bundles Community Scholars Program, everyone, including Ms. Bundles. And a shout out to Karioki for taking me along on this journey. So as George mentioned, I am founder of the Mixtape Museum. And the Mixtape Museum, our main focus is to collect, preserve, and share knowledge related to the evolution of the mixtape. And by the evolution, I mean from as early as the 60s, when the cassette was just supposed to be used with the dictation machine. It wasn't even supposed to be used for music until Dolby was introduced. And all the way through now to digital playlists where we curate music. It's a little easier than using a boombox, right? But it's the same idea to curate music outside of the way that music labels and artists dictate how they want us to listen to their music. The Mixtape Museum is devoted to advancing public understanding and appreciation of the art history, technique, and impact mixtapes have made around the world. So we talk about, we're looking at the art, right? Like the art that's actually on the J cards of the cassettes, the differences between cassettes when they were shared and dubbed, the technology of them, how different music changed when the cassette was introduced to the public. While encouraging the research of mixtapes of records as records of time, place, and situation, it also examines the individuals that shape their existence. So mixtapes are artifacts, right? You can put a mixtape on from a party and know who was in the room, who got the shout outs, who were the artists that were featured. And it will tell you a lot about what was happening in music and in that room, or maybe, you know, just in the world. So however you identify with the cassette, maybe you don't, that's okay. We celebrate the cassette. We celebrate mixtapes, the good and even the bad. There are bad mixtapes, y'all. It's real. So I'm going to talk a little about our collections. The Mixtape Museum is a community archive, and what that means is there's no repository at like a large institution. So the items are cared for. Some of them are at my home, where I try to care for them as best as possible, or offsite in places where there are temperature controlled environments in terms of like temperature and humidity. Those things are important when it comes to especially mixtapes, because they have magnetic media. So our collection, it's both physical, meaning we have physical items. So this Stevie Wonder, which is one of my favorite pieces, is a Stevie Wonder cassette ad. We physically have that piece of paper. These cassette tapes, this was a collection that was donated during the pandemic. We physically have these tapes and are working to digitize them. And the image on the right is a picture that Zach Taylor took. You would see this in the cassette documentary. This is a born digital picture, but because it's so amazing, and I was actually there when he took the picture, we added it to the collection. And central to the Mixtape Museum's collection is the Mixtape Memory Collection. And the focus of that collection is gathering stories from people, from organizations, from anyone who has ever made a mixtape ever. Again, whether it's analog or digital, they're all important because it tells us a story about that moment that that tape was made. So our partners at the Mixtape Museum, the Archery Museum, who we are actually partnering up with right now for an event called Her Story, Mixtape Memories, where we're gathering mixtape memories from the public that are inspired by women. So women in music, women in your lives, Basement Tapes, the Gates Preserved Universal Hip Hop Museum, and the Hip Hop Education Center, Screwed Up HQ out in Texas. And this is just a few, but these organizations help us with our research, with populating our collections. And the Archery Museum, Her Story Mixtape Memories will be archived in the Mixtape Museum once it's complete. We're creating a digital zine where people's memories can be gathered and then shared out in the zine, and also like it'll be available online also. So one of our favorite partners, of course, is Latimer Heights. And I think Karioki, I might have met you at this first Hip Hop Hacks, maybe. But this was before we started working together, but this was the first Hip Hop Hacks, which Karioki mentioned was in 2016. It was at Spotify's office here in Manhattan. And we had 600, between students and mentors and our sponsors and the speakers that we had about 600 people show up, which is insane because we were only planning for like 200. But we were able to handle the crowd, and Spotify was very generous. So we rocked for 2 days. And we had so many amazing, thanks to these sponsors. The photo on the left, that is the Hip Hop Hacks t-shirt with all of our sponsors and collaborators listed on the back. And on the right is our amazing flyer that is still one of my favorites. We worked with a student group call young hackers to organize hip hop hacks. We also work with monthly music hackathon. Our workshops were, they were amazing. You kind of had to be there to experience it, but I'm going to try my best to let you know everything that happened there. We planned for events that were music related, that were also technology related. So there was a workshop to build your own website where they learned HTML, CSS, iOS and Android app building, Arduino, JavaScript, hip hop journalism, DJing, hip hop history, patents, transcripts, and copyrights. And we also had a lyricism and songwriting workshop. So we had a plethora of workshops, and our speakers were, we had Tony Carter, who was a producer. He worked with Dr. Dre, he worked with Biggie. We had Matt Daniels, who's a data visualization scientist. Michael Wiggins, More Games, which is a Black-owned video game development company, and the amazing Martha Diaz from the Hip Hop Education Center. And we basically opened up the event with these speakers, and they gave, through their work, the work that they do separately, they were able to give the students some inspiration before we started out and broke out into rooms. This video is from Hip Hop Hacks in 2017.
It's a world where innovation thrives through collaboration, where technological advances rise from fearless experimentation.
The mentorship is you. Each one teach one. We teach each other.
That was Hip Hop Hacks in 2017. After 2017, we started to focus on events that were one-off events. The original Hip Hop Hacks was more of like a conference, like I described. And we started to focus on all of the things that hip hop hacks. And if you just Google Manny Faces, who does an amazing talk, which actually budded from Hip Hop Hacks, called Hip Hop Hacks Everything. He goes into how hip hop has influenced technology since the beginning of its time. So Karioki touched on this. We recently got this amazing game plan grant, which is insane to me because cat's out the bag. I'm just gonna let everyone know I am a gamer. People in here who are my friends probably know this. So now I'm not ashamed to talk about how much I love gaming and how important it is outside of us thinking that our kids sit around and get bored and don't do anything. There is value in gaming. After 2017, Karioki and I started working actually on these one-off hip hop hacks at the Queensbridge Public Library at their tech lab in Queensbridge. And we started to really focus on spending more time with fewer students. And so on the right, you'll see the flyers from 2017. One is from 2018. These were super special because Karioki probably remembers. We had Large Professor, who is like, this is hip hop royalty, y'all. He did an amazing presentation with Ralph McDaniels where he went through all of the technology he's used since the beginning of his career. It was insane. We had beat making. Liam was built an MPC with a pizza box, which was crazy. Arduino and the freestyle workshop was amazing, and other robotics workshops that we started doing together. So this is where our relationship started. Game plan is really going to, in terms of the Mixtape Museum and the collection, it really is going to give us an opportunity to get students to engage with the collection and all of the themes that come with it. So that means, like, you know, hip hop, the elements of hip hop, right? Like, how deep can we go? As Karioki mentioned, like, we want to bring in the humanities. At Hip Hop Hacks, we had Beat Bang Theory, I think was the name of the workshop, and it was students learning about beats, but also like where they came from, right? They started with the drum, and the class took them all the way through to present day. So we're excited about Game Plan. Game Plan is going to give us the opportunity to teach us how to create games using our collection, but it's also, as Karioki mentioned, going to give us the opportunity to teach students how to make games, right? And getting them involved in something that they're already passionate about makes a ton of sense. And then we can start to do it more responsibly, right? There doesn't have to be violence in a video game. We can talk about the hip hop culture, right? We can talk about empathy. We can talk about collaborative competition. We can talk about failure as iteration. We can talk about all these things, and we can implement them into video games. So what we have coming up, like Karioki mentioned, there's a workshop starting next week, and then there'll be other programming for Game Plan as well, where we'll continue to partner with new partners, maybe some of the older partners that both of us have worked with separately. And we will continue dreaming up a game using the Mixtape Museum collection, which I'm really, really excited about. We talked about putting together a hip hop think tank and including some of the community members from hip hop to just talk with us about what a final game might look like, right? Like, we can make games now and work with students and collaborate, but if there were like a dream hip hop game that included all the elements of hip hop and all of those themes that I mentioned, the empathy, collaborative competition, failure as iteration, what would that look like? So next up, like Karioki said, there may be an in-person Harlem Maker Fair. There may be virtual. It's gonna happen regardless. Same with Hip Hop Hacks. We did have a virtual Hip Hop Hacks during the summer, which was amazing. It was great because we were able to engage with students that were not local. So we had students like join in from like outside of New York, which was really, really cool. We are looking for a dedicated venue in Harlem to continue doing workshops. We both live in Harlem. So it would be really amazing to find a spot where we could, you know, continuously work through these programs. The Mixtape Museum, we are moving forward with that 501c3 status. And that will open up a lot of opportunity also in terms of funding and partnerships. And in the wake of DMX's passing, as of yesterday, we decided that we need to do a Hip Hop Hacks mental health. So I will be teaming up with a friend of mine, Stephanie Carnegie, and possibly Oxymorons and Swag for Stigma, which is their mental health organization, which I actually am a board member on. It's a new org that's working with young people and Black and Brown people, especially to help deal with the mental health issues we have in our community. So this is really important. In fact, I think in 2017, we also did a mental health, social media and mental health workshop at 2017, in 2017 at Hip Hop Hacks, and it was pretty amazing. So thank you for joining us. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. That was great. What we want to do, you know, like Sommer said, like this grant with and this partnership with Games for Change will allow us to, I mean, the great thing about it is kids won't just be playing video games, but they'll actually be constructing something, right? So it's a different kind of reward system than sitting down consuming data rather than creating data. So we know we want to be responsible about that. There are a lot of kids that, especially during now, when everybody's remote, it's easy to just go to your laptop and just open up a game and start playing. And that's one source of energy for you, one source of reward for you. But another source of reward for you, which is a sustainable one, is when you're sitting there and you're actually creating something. So that's what we mean to do in this collaboration. Like Sommer said, our classes for that are going to be starting next week, Wednesday afternoon. So head over to latimerheights.org. I'll put the website in the chat, and you can check out the programs. You can sign up. I need to mention also that the program is free. So there is no fee associated with this. Okay. Okay, great. The other thing that we wanted to do was present a demonstration of a socially engaged art project or a hip hop hack. Okay. When we say hip hop hack, the term, hacking has a negative kind of reputation, but hacking is really just appropriating, right? When you think about hip hop itself, our instrument is the turntable, right? We hacked that because that was the instrument around us. So it's really about making use of what you have. And then that has become $1 billion thing all around the globe, just from, some people who hacked in the Bronx in the 70s, right? So that's always, a good thing to be creating and innovating and inventing. So what I'm going to do is share my screen again, and I'm going to share a project that is inspired by the great Harlem fashion icon, Dapper Dan. And then I'm going to share this project with you. So if you wanted to tweak it and you wanted to use it to create your own data sets, or you had ways of innovating on this project, you're free to do so. The name of this project is called Data Shades. Okay. And we'll also be doing this project, at the Maker Fair and with the Met as well. So I'm using a Colab notebook. This is a kind of platform that you would use when you're doing data science. And you also want to create visuals for the data that you create. People can understand data when it's in the form of pictures. So this is just a sample of how you can generate pictures to tell a story about people, basically. The name of the project is Data Shades. You can see I have a mom and daughter here who attended the 2019 Harlem Maker Fair, and they made pairs of data shades. So I'll describe the project for you. This is a socially engaged art project because it has the component that is dialogue in it. So it's not just sitting on the wall, but there is actually some meaningful discussion going on about the project and a social issue in that community. So Data Shades is a socially engaged art project created by Latimer Heights. And the summary is that we create personal data all the time, and much of that data is accessible to the public. But we are more than just our data. In this activity, we use personal data to create an artifact representing the private and public sides of our personal data identity. The material and the visual aesthetic of this project is inspired by the work of Harlem icon and fashion innovator Dapper Dan, who clothed all the iconic hip hop artists of the 80s and 90s. This project uses a combination of iconic imagery, appropriation, or hacking if you want to call it, and collage to create something original and build a new expressive vocabulary, which is the essence of hip hop. This project draws on some of the artistic practices which cemented Harlem as a cultural oasis. So the material that you would need for this is, for example, you need to get some shade templates, okay? I just ordered them. Then you need to get some gems. You can buy sticky gems, not real bling at all. And then you can get these strips of either Louis Vuitton, Gucci, or whatever kind of fashion you think is hot to people. And we just printed these out on sticker paper, and we just cut them into strips for people. In addition to that, there's like sticky foam sheets here. Some are glittery, some are matte, but these are just all art supplies. Super simple, but super powerful in their ability to attract people. People can see what they're going to make, and they don't say, why are we making this, right? And it's fashionable. So the procedure for data shades is you get a pair of shades, blank, you apply color sticker foam strips to your shades frame, apply designer label sticker strips, okay? So your Gucci or Louis Vuitton, whatever it is. Before adding gems to your data shades, you'll get a card to order the gems that reflect your data. Just place a check in the circle that describes you, and we will know what gems to give you. So in other words, you'll get a card like this. Let's say you're at the Maker Fair and you want to make some data shades, because you do want to make some shades. So you'll get a card like this that has different colors in the circles, RGB colors, and you would just check the ones that apply to you. So there are some statements here. If you speak a language other than English, if you play video games, if you ever written a line of code, if you have a pet, if you are under 18. So any of these you check reveals some data about you, and you'll get those corresponding color gems to stick onto your shades, to design your shades with. So this way, everyone's walking around and you can kind of start a conversation with someone based on the color gems that they have, and you know something about them. They know something about you. So what we did here is we're saying, let's say we get 250 of these, and we record all that data, and we basically just plot the data and put it into a data frame, and we get the numbers for that, and then we just plot and create a bar figure that will give us the stats of what people's responses were. Reveals data about who is at the Maker Fair. How many people are speaking a language other than English? How many people have ever written a line of code? What you want to do with your data set is you want to make sure that you ask questions that don't really overlap. This set right here is a toy one. I just made this for demonstration, right? So you'll probably find some overlap or something like that here. But this is how you get a good frame, a sense of what's going on. And then this informs if you write, I have great Wi-Fi, and a bunch of people in a certain year, you're seeing a trend where people don't have great Wi-Fi in Harlem at the Harlem Maker Fair, then you know that this is something that you need to address the year leading up to the Harlem Maker Fair. So this bar chart gives us a picture and helps inform us of who the attendees are at the Harlem Maker Fair, what their needs may be, and where we need to direct our funding efforts and resources to. So if people don't have reliable Wi-Fi or working devices, then we can focus on fundraising. We can focus our fundraising efforts accordingly. So that is the hip hop hack. That is the project that is inspired by Dapper Dan, the aesthetic, and then we're also using data science with a little bit of lines of code to make a simple bar chart that has colors for stratification, and you can see the year. So if you hover over this, you'll get what each color is significant of or signifying. If you want, you can play around with this. I started to add some sound stuff to it, but then there was just I thought too much. But if you go to latimerheights.org, you're going to see this. You'll see this. So you'll just tap on an image on the bottom that looks exactly like this. It's going to say, check the circle for you. Click on that image, and it's going to say, get the link, and then you have access to this notebook. Okay, so this is just a really simple, basic level of getting getting data and data visualization using Python. And that is that presentation.
Great. Thank you both so much. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did.
I enjoyed it.
So I have a few questions. We have about 10 minutes, and I'll just jump in. Can you each speak briefly about your experience as a bundles scholar, whether that is in coursework or is it in research at the libraries, or is it connections with your fellow scholars, or something else? And you can choose who goes first.
Fine, Karaoke, I'll go first. I mean, I don't think I can say enough about the Community Scholars Program. I used it to network, and also to research, to learn how to research. I was not able to take classes at the time because my work schedule was crazy. But with the Columbia email address and the right connections and just being resourceful, I was able to reach out to a lot of people that were at Columbia, but also outside of Columbia, and continue to do it. I mean, what's great is I was in the cohort in 2016, I believe. But as you can see, I'm still very active in the program, and it still supports me when I need to. Here I am, like doing a talk, right? Or if I'm at a conference and someone's like, "Oh, you're at Columbia," and I'm like, "Yes, I am." So and what's crazy is Karaoke. I knew Karaoke before he became a scholar also. Like Hip Hop Hacks happened before. And I was like, Karaoke, you gotta apply for this program. You have to. And here he is. Here you are.
Here I am.
So yeah, I can't say enough about the program. It's instilled confidence in me as a scholar coming from the music industry and not really considering myself an academic. I still don't. I did work in academia for 12 years and moved into computer science at some point, but I still would not have thought that I would be at Columbia presenting on hip hop. So thank you.
Karaoke, do you want to share a little bit of
Sure.
your experience as a scholar?
Well, I've been this is my third year, and I've taken, at the core of my passion is, of course, lifelong learning and experimenting and making and things of that sort. So if you offer me, a coding course, I'm going to be your best friend, so having access to that is super powerful. Access is what makes the difference. Being able to go to use a resource in a way that empowers you, really empowers you to empower others. And that's what I've been doing with the class. I've been taking classes pretty much the whole time, computer science classes, AI, and also I've been using it to inform the way that I structure our content at Latimer Heights. And I've also used it to make connections with the School of Engineering, and have other fellow community scholars come to and participate in the Harlem Maker Fair. So it's a huge benefit. And of course, as Sommer said, having the Columbia email as well is certainly useful and influential. But most importantly for me is access to the knowledge, because that's what I'm about. So I benefit 20-fold from the program.
Great, thank you. Question about the digital divide is a big concern in New York City, across the country, across the world. How have you witnessed the digital divide in the communities where you work, whether it's access to equipment and hardware, or probably as likely Wi-Fi or other circumstances? How have you experienced that through the eyes of your clients, students, youth? And also, how did that change with COVID in terms of getting better or worse? Were people more familiar with of some of the programming that you were trying to introduce, for example? But I mean, in terms of that issue, how big a problem was it? How better and or worse? And you can choose who goes first there. I see you nodding a lot, Sommer.
I am, because the problem was there before COVID. You know, it at the first hip hop hacks, we actually had sponsors, because we had workshops that some of them required that you come with a computer, right? We had to get a sponsor to loan computers. Same thing in 2017, we had someone, you know, loan out computers. There was an instance recently since COVID, where a student that my team worked with didn't have a computer to like do a college application. Like, that's a problem, you know? So I believe that, you know, programs like this, community programs like this, like, I wish I could have we were able to give away 2 Xboxes at the first hip hop hacks, but it would have been nice if we could have given every student that needed one a computer, right? Because they need their computers to do homework. And to just do regular day, you know, like daily things that we all do on our phones or on our tablets. So I think what's going to happen since COVID is we're now realizing that we can all have access and live happily and have and not be without. And there has to be a way that we can get students like devices that are new and working and you know, new and working. Like, they need to have a computer. It should not be on loan.
Karioki, do you want to speak at all to your experience with the digital divide and students coming to the fair?
So I like what the BBC has done with the microbit. Like, they've given one to every kid of a certain grade in the UK for, like, you know, totally free. You know, so it's a microcontroller that introduces you to coding, introduces you to circuitry, and allows you to build projects and prototypes. And they just gave it away to kids and schools. So I agree with Sommer that, like, kids and families need to actually be given the hardware, right? But also, I think that we are doing a lot now that we could have done prior to COVID. You know, like, for example, forums like this can reach a lot of people all around the world if we're doing it in a virtual space. Even when I think about teachers, teachers had the technology in their schools, but the leadership was not enforcing a training on that. So even when I went into schools, it was hard to get a buy-in from the leadership of the school to say STEM is an important thing. You know, so I think it's not only that people don't have access in some sort of a physical sense. I think also just thinking about why we wait until a crisis happens before we actually become more than just a consumer of the technology. Like, that's the piece that I tried to address in my opening as well. And, you know, I think it's important that people have hardware, absolutely, but at the same time, we need to actually be using the tech that we have for what it's designed to do, you know, really fully and widely, and not just playing on our phone, but learning how to program that as well, you know, because people have phones, but what are they doing on them, you know? So I would say that some of the divide is that, is the fact that it's what we're doing with our technology. And then there is, of course, I think the other half, which is the fact that people don't just have access to hardware, for example, to Wi-Fi. And then if you don't have that, you don't have access to courses.
Well, hopefully we won't let this crisis go to waste, and that there has been an evolution over the last year. I have a question here from, I think it's a colleague of yours, Karioki, from the Resettlement.
Oh,
How do you see the potential of gaming and coding as a pathway to the world of work skills that can empower youth to gain traction in STEM careers and get included in the future of the tech field? How can this bridge the gap to inclusion for at-risk or underserved youth?
that's a great question. I think that is about what the content of your games are. So, because if you're making a game that's all about just shooting, okay, that's one thing to do. But what if the discussion was around problem solving, creating games that solve climate, problems, flooding, even with all aspects of, trying to create a program. How can you really think of this as a way of problem solving? So I think that if the discussion and if your themes are around that, then that opens up students to more than just the market where you're just playing games at home, but you'll actually be able to create a game that is actually a model, a problem-solving model of a real world problem.
Sommer, do you have anything to add, or do you want to?
No, that was perfect.
I agree. I was interested, and others are as well, Karioki, in the parent network, extending the Harlem Maker Fair beyond the youths who are participating theoretically and probably in reality, creating a network of not just including the parents, but a network of parents. How is that working? And can you talk a little bit about that?
So that's something that we're starting right now, because it's ideal for the Maker Fair to actually be run by people who live in Harlem, who live in the community. And I've noticed that there's a disconnect really when I'm trying to communicate to kids who are excited about stuff, but then when they go home, there's no one there to talk to them about that stuff, so there's no kind of a reflection. I think that we have to approach this by approaching the family and saying, okay, and it doesn't matter if it's the parent, it can be anybody who actually takes care of the kid, how can we increase their skills so that they feel like they have the power to actually help and guide youth if they decide that they want to pursue something in STEM. So what we need to do is actually create a certification course and for those people who want to do that, and give them some sort of a credential, and that's empowerment. And then I think that they will then be more equipped and ready to actually participate and take over the Maker Fair.
And also confidence building.
Absolutely.
In this realm. We have a question from a fellow scholar. I keep encouraging my nephew, Lil Nicholson. I keep encouraging my nephews that spend time gaming that they should consider creating and marketing their own games. Where could I recommend they go to pursue this further?
Come to Latimer Heights.
Yeah,
right. Okay, there you go. All right, Lil.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Karioki and I talked about was, the potential of what someone can do working in the gaming industry, right? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be creating the game. You don't have to be designing the game. You can be involved in the music of the game, the marketing of the game, the packaging of the game. There's the publicity of the game,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you are in education and you want to consult the game developers, right? So there are like other opportunities outside of like, you know, creating games. And I think when students come to events like Hip Hop Hacks and they say they were already studying code, right? Or they identified as an artist or a producer. We had students leave who were artists and say, oh, I'm gonna go make my own website to market myself as an artist because I learned HTML, right? I myself learned SQL in my 30s. And I learned it because I wanted to build a database for mixtapes. And now it's a job. So now I manage databases. That's it's my job. But Karioki mentioned something that was really important, and that's making certificates available. I didn't go to school for computer science, right? I took a whole lot of courses online, and also a few physical, like in-person courses, but mostly online, and just like studied and used the internet to learn it. So
Yeah.
we have to make access to the education, and it doesn't have to be a traditional route to learn it.
Absolutely.
We look forward to working with you to achieve that. We're a little bit over time, so I'm just going to end with some words from Alelia Bundles herself, and says, Karioki and Regan were fantastic programs, just smiling from ear to ear after hearing you. So pleased that you have gained so much, and grateful that you are representing Columbia so fabulously. And I think we all can echo that. So I think we're going to close out. We've gone through all the questions, and unless there are any final statements, we can wish you all a good evening.
Hey, good
Thank
evening
you.
to everyone. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, great work.
And remember to check out LatimerHeights.org, check out Mixtape Museum as well, and be in touch. Thank you, everyone.
And there are some people who've been offering ideas and hopefully resources
that's awesome.
in the chat. So
I saw that.
we'll send that to you as well. You can copy the chat too if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's great. We really wanted to get that certificate component going and talked about more, and have that kind of be a next step really in the development of the Harlem Maker Fair.
And I want to address Ellie in the chat, whose class I was in the last 2 weeks. She's teaching a hip hop class at Columbia, and I got to meet her amazing students and learn about the work that she's doing with them. And Kush, which is the Columbia University Society of Hip Hop, they're on campus and they're studying hip hop. So I can't wait and hope that we can work together more. Thanks so much.
Thank you again. We'll see you soon. Good night,
Thanks,
everyone. Thank
Have
you
a
for
good night.
coming.